Hey there, welcome to your weekly, or should I say, in the moment that you find this, energetic flow report. We get together like this to tap into the less of the predictive side of the energies and more, it's like taking the temperature. It's like a weather vane, so to speak. And, the planets are the almanac, and we put it all together and we try to come up with a crop that is worthy of our talents and abilities. So, it's essentially Independence Day here in the United States, July 4th. So, happy birthday, America. I love America. I chose to make America my home, and for all of the shortcomings that one could find in the system that exists here and the way that history has played out, America still remains to me the most dynamic and hopeful of concepts in the nation state mindset. So it suits me, and California suits me even more because it is innovative and progressive and slightly out there, slightly outside of reality sometimes too. That seems to influence the rest of the world. So it's an interesting, energetic anchor to have for me personally. Anyway, now that I have made that interesting and bizarre and unexpected introduction, I want to explain to you how I'm doing this reading. Going forth, I'm doing whatever the hell I feel like doing, because seeing as I have a very, very unengaged, broader audience, and I lose viewership all the time, and personally I feel that what I do is actually extremely authentic and comes not only from spirit but from my own wisdom and experience, and I think that that's worthwhile, and I think it's worth a lot, but apparently it's either not that easy to follow for some people, or it just doesn't have the kind of appeal, or I don't have the kind of appeal that other readers have. And I've allowed myself to be frustrated by that. I've allowed myself to become emotionally swayed by the notion of that it's a losing battle to be in a popularity contest when you come from a very unique place, and everything about my life has been geared towards me embracing my uniqueness. The temperance process, all these years of conforming and celebrating my individuality, or just like crawling on my hands and knees through the muck of attaining authenticity through embracing one's uniqueness. So I guess I don't have to really care what I do any longer. If you're watching this, it's because you obviously get something out of what I do and you enjoy my way of presenting things, and I appreciate that very much. So I'm just going to mess around a little bit with different things, not focus so much on, everything's synergistic, right? So in terms of the astrology, it's we're moving into the second decan of Cancer. So we've spent that first part of Cancer season in our shell, going through a sort of a cleansing process, coming to terms with accepting our ideas and our thoughts and our values, in preparation for then emerging from the shell into a sort of not so much testing how those things fit in the world around us, but I mean it is a test drive, I suppose, but it's a firmly committed one. I think you've probably been consumed, as I have, by a lot of the more subtle energies of Black Moon Lilith, the Black Moon Lilith has been at the high degrees, is at the high end degrees of Taurus, so our values, where we belong, and Black Moon Lilith rules our fears, so that's really been the energy of pretty much of the entire year so far, 2021. I think, this idea of re-emergence post-pandemic lockdown, I know it's wavering here and there, but regardless, it's evolutionary and it's always moving forward in some shape or form into something unknown. That's really... Yes, somebody just decided to make their entrance. That's very nice, but I'm in the middle of something very, very, very important. So, Black Moon Lilith is I think at 28, almost 29 degrees, so the critical degree, which is a completion of that energy, and then it moves into Gemini. So then that will be more about we'll have to discover that together, because I don't know exactly what Black Moon Lilith and Gemini will bring up for us, but it'll be a much more collective energy rather than this very individuated kind of sense of where we fit in. And so that's probably what, underneath it all, if you really think about your frustrations, and what's been difficult for you, what's been testing you, that's really the essence of what lies beneath it. Could you stop? It's the terrible twos, or whatever you want to call it. Very cute, but very crazy. So, that is, to me, what we are experiencing most intensely. And for me, I can give you an example which I think is going to probably speak to you. I'm sure this is more geared towards my personal chart, but you'll be able to see how this fear applies. And so for me, the way it's been affecting me is the value and the trust that I place in my own commitments, in terms of how I honor my own experience and my knowledge and my the value of all of that, coming full circle to what I was talking about before about recording these readings. And first of all, I wing it with these things. Nothing is really prepared, so maybe that's what isn't appealing to people, because people like things to be very produced and formatted in a certain way, and I try my hardest, but that's just really not that interesting to me. This isn't really about me at all, so I am who I am, and if people like me, then great. But in other parts of my world, particularly when it comes to my livelihood, I tend to be far more diplomatic, far more reserved, far more mindful of the consequences of my authenticity coming through. And, that goes without saying. I mean, I'm sure we all feel somewhat like that because we depend on our incomes and whatever else, so we don't want to piss people off left, right, and center. However, sometimes we are inclined, out of conditioning, to make ourselves small in situations where we are right. And I don't do that anymore. And it can get me in what feels like hot water because I speak my mind, I put my boundary very clearly, and if somebody doesn't respect that boundary, especially where there's murkiness between different parts of my life, for example, a professional relationship that has a friendship compartment to it, in some way, just from bonding or whatever, that if people cross that boundary and don't respect it, I am really at the point now in my life where I'm kind of like, I'm not going to put up with that from anybody. It's not so much that I'm judging the other person for not being able to know the difference. It's just that I would be in judgment of myself if I decided to make space for something that to me seems Neanderthal in the process of, I feel that way about people with their sexuality. I feel that way about people with their, gender identities. I feel that way about people with their politics. I feel that way about people in many, many ways, that it's like, this group think or this, conforming to the herd. Very often life is going to give everyone those tower moments in some shape or form in order to force them beyond the herd mentality, unless they just stay asleep their entire life, right? I'm not being a martyr when I say this, but those lessons in my life came as serious hard knocks. Things that were soul shattering. The deconstruction of the concept of family, the all this bullshit of like basically what I was forced to believe. And I say that by force because it was convenient for other people. And the reality is that those people that impose those rules, whether that be the family dynamic or people that don't know boundaries, and don't respect your boundaries, very often what you realize is they just steamroll their way through life expecting it to be the way that they have decided it's going to be. There is no, they want you to accommodate their concept. They want you to hold space for what makes sense to them, or it doesn't even make sense because it's probably unexamined, but what suits them. And yet at the same time, they don't make room for the possibility that other people have evolved in a different way or have a different approach or different thought system. I'm being very, very broad here because it hits so many different parts of our life. So I hope you find where that is relevant to you. But because of that conditioning, fear conditioning of Black Moon Lilith and of course our life experiences in trauma and social conditioning that may have traumatized us in particular, because it goes against the very nature. If you're forced to be something that you are not, if you are forced to think a way that is not natural to you, it goes against your nature. All of that kind of stuff is going to build up and cause a lot of turmoil that causes most people to either lash out, which I've done at very many different times in my life, or especially as we age, because we tend to soften somewhat as we age, I have become inclined to give credence and more authority to the way that another person's needs fit into those patterns based on the fear of losing something as a result of it. Whether that be that the person might betray me, or that the person might seek revenge because they can't, they can't handle that truthfulness, that directness, or that it results in loss and therefore a sense of emptiness. All of that is based upon a fear, because whatever those things are that I'm attached to, removing them leaves the unknown, which should be seen as something beautiful, expansive, opportunistic, full of possibility and life. It's vital, and it's the old saying, old expression of better the devil you know, which is one of the most ugly concepts that I can think of, but it's very commonplace for people to buy into that, right? And of course it's complete nonsense, because it's never better the devil you know. It's like, it's better that you remain curious and grow, and that you have a thirst for life, and and that you are able to expand beyond the circumstances, the thoughts, the feelings, the frustrations, the lack of action, whatever it may be, that has you as you have been up until now, this opportune moment to change. And letting go of fear, working through fear, accepting fear, analyzing fear, understanding where it comes from, why it comes up. Sometimes in avoidance of, in order to not actually have to have a tower moment in your life to actually force you into facing the fear and overcoming it. It's also about exploring like what it is that you're fearful of, and sometimes when you walk yourself, most of the time when you walk yourself through that, you realize beyond your irrational thought process that these projections, all of these things are based on old stories, old experiences, and maybe you can't even remember the old story that caused you to feel that programmed to have the same expectation, but the one common denominator that gives you the power to always move beyond that is you, because you don't have to have the same experience again. You don't have to experience anything in the same way as you did before, and you can dictate that to other people and yourself included, and you lead by example by staying in your authenticity, and that requires moving beyond fear. And I'm saying all of this, I know it's very long-winded, but because it's so important to understand, because I think that all that we're experiencing through the Jupiter and upcoming Venus energy with the T-squares and all of this, just this stuff that's been really kind of intense for all of us, as we move into this second decan of Cancer, and we have Mercury coming out of its retrograde shadow, so we're full steam ahead. Mercury still in Gemini, and all of this is sort of, it's like a throttle against the tide of fear in our lives. And that is sometimes as simple as just facing that, as we often see in the Osho Zen Tarot, the idea of no-thingness, that, the concept of emptiness is not one that should awaken fear in us. It's one that should inspire us, because it means that the cup is able to receive when it is empty or depleted or whatever, It's only the fear that keeps us anchored in the thought of lack. How will I regain? That's usually how we think, right? How will I regain control? How will I regain a sense of familiarity, And yes, we ground ourselves spiritually, but we do not need to ground ourselves spiritually in activity, in schedule, in rules. There is a great truth to rules being made to be broken. Rules guide us into a space of questioning. If the rule makes sense, then we stick with it. If it doesn't, then we question it and we figure out what we think is better. That's a healthy life path. And that is where we are right now, at a crossroads, making that decision. Do I allow myself to keep growing, or am I dead? Am I in the 3D dead zone? And you can live a very carefree or mostly comfortable, slow demise, or not so slow, depending on where we're at on our journey. And that's perfectly fine. I mean, the reality is that anybody who lives in the paradigm that we as a collective live in, when I say we, I mean people that are, exploring spirituality and exploring the big picture and the unknown, the mystery of the beauty and the mystery of the universe, we understand that, it's kind of like kicking the can down the road, it's just like if you don't do the work, if you don't take advantage of the opportunities that you have to constantly grow and to experience newness. And newness doesn't necessarily mean reinventing the wheel of your life and suddenly you change your profession or where you live or whatever. The newness is in here and here, it starts here, but it connects to the mind, That is all within the realm of your capability to achieve at any moment that you want. It just takes committing to it, and then the universe does indeed conspire. So, that said, now that I've gotten 22 minutes into this, just talking about these things, let's see what these cards tell us. And I've taken actually not very many. I do have a brand new Oracle deck, which I'm excited about, and I am going to have picked a card from that suits us perfectly. And so we shall see where this reading takes us, because I'm going to do a lot of reading and then sort of interjecting what comes into my mind. And where do we start? Well, I think we will start, as I always do, with the one sacred Destiny Oracle card that we received. I'm sorry for the colors, but like with my strange mood lighting, I like everything to be purple, as you can see. So it doesn't necessarily do wonders for the cards, but you can see it anyway. Release. Release. What are we releasing? Well, we're releasing fear. We are releasing our past. We are releasing our attachment to ghosts, essentially. Because ghosts are just ideas. Ghosts don't exist. I know it's, we've all been conditioned into, fear in that way, but ghosts don't exist outside of the mind, let's put it that way. When as children or adolescents or even adults, we're fearful of ghosts and the presence of things around us. It's not, there's no nefarious, well, I mean, unless you're a very, very dark person, I suppose you could, like ultimately attract energy into your space that is uncomfortable, but it's just fear along with energy, basically. And so when we are grappling at those stages, as I was just saying, in our life, when we're grappling with the idea of ghosts, it's unresolved, unfaced shadow aspects. That's all it is. I know that's very simplistic, but it really is nothing more than that. And just the idea that we're afraid of the dark, or that we're afraid of being alone or anything. I mean, much of that stems from, yes, it's fight or flight. Yes, it's our conditioning from our ancestry that, remains dormant within us and sometimes is activated, and that's, our whole adrenal system and so on and so forth is like, hardwired on some level to respond to certain things if we're too stressed or too stimulated or whatever. And trust me, I know all about that, because I've been through hell in my life as a result of that. And a lot of you have, I know, that watch this, like there's so many of you, but the ones that I do know personally who watch this, we have that in common. We have all been through facing loss of control as a result of too much anxiety. Which is the conditioning from trauma to need to control things for fear of being hurt, for fear of experiencing the emotion that exists only within ourselves. So we're just afraid of our own shadow, essentially, literally. Okay, I'm going to read release, because that's what you're letting go of, right? When you receive this card, it's time to let go and surrender. Let go of situations, people, and objects that do not serve you. Let go of old, outmoded, self-limiting beliefs that drag you down. This is a time of stripping away superficial distractions until you reach who you are at your core. If you are holding on to the old, it is difficult for anything new to come into your life. Begin to clear your home and living environments of clutter. If you don't love it or use it, it's probably just clutter. And that goes for people too. I mean, obviously, yes. Yes, it does. Clear it out of your space. It's time for a detox. To get ready for the new, you must release the old. And again, the old can be versions of relationships. It doesn't mean getting rid of a person. It doesn't mean anything tangible in that way. Your power is in changing your perspective, your way of experiencing something. So anything that's making you uncomfortable or unhappy or unhealthy or, out of balance or, I know, for example, with astrology, because I follow a lot of different astrology teachers, because I'm always in the process of learning more and more about astrology. I remain very much a student in that way, and I love that, because it's something I find fascinating. But I have to say that, when you're learning from teachers through watching YouTube videos or reading, different sources of information about the astrology of our times and so on and so forth, you can easily fall into not only anxiety, but you can live in anticipation of the worst. I mean, when you're like talking about, Saturn squaring Uranus and, and all these different, whatever it may be, there's so many, let's be honest, the transit of planets is ever changing constantly, and it is cyclical, and some things we never see again in our lifetime. Sometimes we see them multiple times in our lifetime, especially, obviously there's a lot of things, that, depending on the orbit of different planets and so on and so forth. Anyway, I don't need to go into that, that. But, whatever it is, it's astrology, and the planetary energy is there to enlighten us and to move us forward, not to, harness us or calcify us into being stuck in fear and depression and anxiety, and all of those things are that's the lack of vitality. It's a lack of life force and energy. So it's almost like the invitation is always there just to let go of that, I understand that some of us actually have to survive at times, when we're short of cash or something. That can be a scary place to be, but you're watching this and you've been through that and you're still here and you're fine, right? So there's every reason to believe that if you're feeling challenged in any way, or you do feel challenged in any way in the near future or the not near future, you will be guided to overcome that. Again, I'm stating the obvious, but for some person out there, maybe it's helpful to hear that and to feel the reassurance of that process. So, release. And then, from my brand new deck, which I shall show you, which I am looking forward to discovering, I decided to go for this, Rasuli's Sufi Wisdom Oracle, Divine Guidance Through the Hearts of the Great Sages. And the cards are beautiful, and the message, I believe, will be even more beautiful because I am not, I'm vaguely familiar with Sufism, but I think there's a lot to learn from all different belief systems and wisdom, sources of wisdom, should I say. Excuse me, now I've got like Enzo trying to excuse me for like being so vulgar, but literally he just had his claws like grabbing right near my ball sack in my shorts. Yes, I have testicles. I'm a male. Here, this is the card. Do not be frustrated. Let go and feel peaceful. Just looking at that card kind of transports you there, doesn't it? And it's kind of beautiful the way it's actually like mirroring my top of my chest. I can't really, well, maybe I'm just crazy, but that's how I saw it. Anyway, I'm going to read this to you and let us be enlightened by Sufi wisdom. Do not be frustrated. Let go and feel peaceful. Oh, Hafiz, don't be so troubled by the winds of fall in the meadow of life. Come to your senses. Where is a rose without a thorn? That was by Hafiz. Feeling unusually frustrated and irritable is an indication that you are burned out. Your body may be overwhelmed from life's stresses, and you may be missing love and excitement in your life. Hafiz refers to this state as the winds of fall in the meadow of life. This is when we are tempted to run away from others and hide in our own bubble. We forget about the physical, social, and spiritual resources available to us. Hafiz comes as the oracle to help you recognize there will never be a time when life is simple. You will find peace of mind only when you accept there is no need to yearn, envy, and grab for what you want. Every moment is a chance to simply let go and feel composed and peaceful. Let that be your centering renewal. This is all uncannily interwoven, right? So that's why I decided to do the reading differently, because I figured we don't really need that many cards nowadays. We can use them to give us a little more insight, clarify some things here and there, but the messages are usually pretty much on the nose, straightforward, and easy to understand and apply. If we don't resist them. I mean, obviously if we're in resistance, this kind of a reading, which is probably why I only got like 18 viewers like the last couple of weeks. This approach to reading is, I think, disturbing to some people because it's too, I think people want their hand to be held too much and to be told what to expect and what to do. But the bottom line is, if you're placing your power outside of yourself, I mean, these are just energies that are here for us to use for our growth process, right? Beloved, your soul is surrounded by lovers who move beyond time. There is an ability within you to live more exuberantly than you could ever imagine. If you are experiencing confusion in your life or a feeling that things are not going your way, this Sufi wisdom reminds you that it is time for some adjustment. Probably letting go, releasing, right? Surrender to the flow that is guiding you away from what seems to be your comfort zone. Allow yourself to become more aligned with your inner spiritual growth. Above all, make time for more leisure and relaxation. Have a little fun, explore nature, meet new people, and be open to new experiences. Oh my God, really? What are you doing? Okay, well, everybody gets to see your butt and your growing balls. See? He has balls too. But those will be removed eventually. Mantra. I am letting go of what disturbs me and causes me pain. I am determined to overcome the challenges that leave me feeling stuck, frustrated, and hopeless. I will be more open to my heart and to experiencing the joy of life. I'm going to read that twice because I think it's really good for us to say the mantra together. So set your intention, open up, and let's take that in together. I am letting go of what disturbs me and causes me pain. I am determined to overcome the challenges that leave me feeling stuck, frustrated, and hopeless. I will be more open to my heart and to experiencing the joy of life. And isn't that so funny that it's so difficult to remind ourselves of the joy of life? That that's all life is. Sick or healthy, in love or out of love, whatever it is, your only obligation in life is to find joy in everything. And, you know, that ego that gets in the way, that keeps us in pain and keeps us miserable, essentially. I mean, it is one of the most narcissistic things that we could do. It's not how our society teaches us to view narcissism, because we see narcissism as people that consume other people's energy. But we're narcissists when we consume our own energy with darkness and negativity, and we don't face our shadow with authenticity and truthfulness, you know? So there you have it. Okay, now I'm going to, I'll confirm for you, like, because I think we'll end with the Osho Zen tarot cards because we got 3 of them that came out together. So I only pulled 2 tarot cards, and they are from the Botticelli deck this week, and they speak volumes. Again, we got the World, so that is the last of the major arcana in the tarot. So it's completion, it is fulfillment, it is openness, as you can see. It's an openness to everything that the universe has to offer, because we've been through all of the lessons of the karmic cycle and we can let go of them. And there is a huge important thing to remember in that. We are moving out of an era of karma. And I don't mean so that we then engage in more karma. In this lifetime, at this point, we have everything at our fingertips to let go of the karmic journey that we have been on. We know the lessons. If we live by those truths going forth, then we will not have karmic retribution to deal with. We won't have to deal with tower moments. We won't have to expect things to fall apart. Excuse me. And the other tarot card that we got was the Two of Wands, which makes it perfectly clear, because what the Two of Wands does, it is the enlightened decision. It is, as you can see from the figure in the card, like moving forward with a rapturous enthusiasm about where we're headed, because this person is they have the knowledge that they're making the right choice, and the right choice is towards their joy and the fulfillment of their curiosity. And that is, as we moved out of Gemini season, that was what we were sort of conditioned to face in ourselves, is where we're lacking in curiosity in our lives, where we're lacking in openness, where we are too controlled. And of course, Cancer comes along, no offense to any Cancers, and it kind of does the opposite to us, where it puts the brakes on because it forces us to go inwards again. And in addition to that, with the retrograde planets that we've had and are having still, That does a lot of, especially Jupiter going retrograde, that amplifies all of these things in a not regressive, but introspective way, and perhaps even retroactive in many ways, So, beyond that, I have, again, this is going to be perfectly in succession. It's going to give us a real message. So brace yourselves, we're at 40 minutes, and I'm going to read the full 3 cards from Asha Zen Tarot. There is wisdom in there for you. Stick around for it. I promise you that this is giving you some major lessons. So I hope you pay attention, because I'm looking forward to reading the messages, because I know what the cards represent and the way that they've come together. These 3 cards is very much exactly as we would hope to gain access to enlightenment and clarification. So we start with the 6 of Swords, which is interesting that the 6 of Swords is seen is shown as the burden, and this is an interesting depiction which the actual oracle book will explain to us, but that it's called the burden, and that in the traditional tarot we always look at the 6 of Swords as being moving away from troubled times, so this is really also embracing like the trouble that we are moving away from, so here we go. I'll hold it up for you as the visual can help. When we carry a load of shoulds and shouldn'ts imposed on us by others, we become like this ragged, struggling figure trying to make his way uphill. Go faster, try harder, reach the top, shouts the foolish tyrant he carries on his shoulder, while the tyrant himself is crowned with an imperious rooster. If life these days feels like just a struggle from the cradle to the grave, it could be time to shrug your shoulders and see what it feels like to walk without those characters on your back. You have your own mountains to conquer, your own dreams to fulfill, but you will never have the energy to pursue them until you release yourself from all the expectations you've gathered from others, but now think are your own. Chances are they exist only in your own mind, but that doesn't mean they can't weigh you down. It's time to lighten up and send them on their way. Basically, that's exactly what we've just been talking about for the last 40 minutes, right? So that's why I'm saying, it's I wouldn't even say it's uncanny. It's just a perfect gift from the universe to give us. It's like, this is like when you get the pep talk from the teacher, when you've been failing at your exams or you've been not grasping a subject, and you need that little push, a little bit of truth, a little bit of encouragement, a little bit of enlightenment, and then also a little nudge, a friendly nudge in the right direction. That's how I view it, and all of this is very evolutionarily rich. A man's true life is the way in which he puts off the lie imposed by others on him. Stripped naked, natural, he is what he is. This is a matter of being and not of becoming. The lie cannot become the truth. The personality cannot become your soul. There is no way to make the non-essential the essential. The non-essential remains non-essential, and the essential remains essential. They are not convertible. And striving towards truth is nothing but creating more confusion. The truth has not to be achieved. It cannot be achieved. It is already the case. Only the lie has to be dropped. All aims and ends and ideals and goals and ideologies, religions and systems of improvement and betterment are lies. Beware of them. Recognize the fact that as you are a lie. Manipulated, cultivated by others. Striving after truth is a distraction and a postponement. It is the lie's way to hide. See the lie. Look deep into the lie of your personality, because to see the lie is to cease to lie. No longer to lie is to seek no more for any truth. There is no need. The moment the lie disappears, truth is there in all its beauty and radiance. In the seeing of the lie, it disappears, and what is left is the truth. And that's perfect, because I didn't really finish what I was trying to explain at the very beginning when I was talking about my own turmoil of, speaking my truth and being afraid of the consequences of it. Well, there it is in a nutshell. Most people don't want the truth. Because to hear the truth unravels their own lie. It exposes the lie within themselves. And I had a conversation with somebody last night specifically that caused me to have to put a very firm boundary in place, because I will not have my time wasted hearing somebody else trying to dupe themselves, lying to themselves, and thinking that I'm falling for their fucking lie too. It's bullshit, and it's ugly when people do that. And it's not that one person that, doesn't deserve to be made an example of, because it's in a lot of different things in my life, particularly the shit soup of my family background, which I have accepted and moved beyond, and but it doesn't mean that I don't grapple with sadness and frustration and I try not to feel angry, but sometimes I do, because I'm conditioned to also think that it could have been different. Of course it couldn't have been different. It's exactly as it was meant to be in order for me to have the experience of life that I have, and same thing for them, in their way. But the despondency, the lie of never being able to self-analyze, never being able to, when confronted with somebody else's version of the truth, or how they want to verbalize that, to then meet that with silence or denial or no, not even there's no rebuttal. That's the story of my life with, particularly my parents. It's just it was unbelievable to me that I basically prepared a whole terrain of truth. I always made it easy for the truth to be examined in a co-creative way. And the ego of those people was just that's inconvenient to my life. And again, I'm not making an example of them. Of course, that's a big deal for me in my life, because, it really used to alienate me enormously until I took the power back and I just put the wall up myself. And it's not really a wall, but just no, just no. And I feared the consequences of that for a very, very long time. Because I suppose underneath it all, I knew that by speaking my truth, by confronting exposing that truth, that I knew what the end result would be. It would be the loss of the relationship, the loss of the illusion, and even making this video it's difficult for me, because it's a possibility that that my family could see this and hear it, but it's my truth, and it's what I've said to them over and over again, and I gave every opportunity to move beyond these absurd narcissistic denial behavior patterns. And it forced me to confront those things with courage for myself, not for them. I wish them all the enlightenment that they can have, and all the better understanding of themselves, their successes and failures and whatever, as I hold true for myself. That is a God-given right to all of us. But at the same time, did I die? No. Did I lose my identity? No. My identity became enriched by taking ownership of my truth and my values and my experiences, and having faith that I am a good person who has always worked from a place of goodwill. And if the chips fall in a way that doesn't add up to what you'd hope would come as a result of goodwill, you know there's something rotten there, and you're better off without it. That's just the way that life is. That's how we evolve. That's how we make space for the new. And so, anyway, I hope that made sense in that. We're not done yet, because that was the primary card. Next, we have understanding, which will give us more of a sense of the enlightenment process from that burden and releasing the burden. So let's see, what is understanding? I think it's the Queen of Cups in this deck, I'm not sure. Let me see. Sorry, I have allergies right now, so I've got very itchy eyes. Oh, it's the Page of Water. Of course, Page being the student. And again, as I say these things, everything's evolutionary, you know, I mean, people can grow at any time. It's like nothing's set in stone. I mean, maybe my family, my parents will come around to being able to have, you know, an earnest conversation in ownership of their own baggage, but and there's no condition on that. It's just, I'm just expressing where I am in my life, and how we, you know, that's an example for me of something big that, you know, had very fearful consequences for me, because, you know, I mean, for me, like from my early childhood, my greatest fear was abandonment, and you know, it's very funny because my parents always like questioned how it was possible that I had so much anxiety and where did this fear of abandonment come from? Never able to analyze themselves to understand what they caused in me. It's absurd, you know, like they just never even saw it. Never took any responsibility for it. It's like, oh no, Alex was like a hypersensitive child. That's why he was, you know, it's like, well, again, I may come across as like having a bit of fervent like emotionality in the way that I'm conveying that. It's really not. It's more the intellectual pursuit of expressing it to you to show like, you know, what an enormous fuel of like confusion and chaos that caused for many years in my life that I had to eventually confront. And that's, you know, again, all this letting go, all of this releasing, that's like whatever that is for you in your life, you know? You know, it's not, there's nothing to be afraid of in letting go of the illusion, you know? In fact, it's the most admirable, beautiful thing, you know? I mean, even if you're holding on to the illusion of being right when you know you're wrong about something underneath it all, you know, the lightening of your load would be massive just to let go of that and just to live in acceptance of it, right? You can't change the past, but you can own it and allow it to give you the boost to grow. That's the beauty of it, you know? Everything is a mistake in life. But it's also not. It's the exact opposite. That's like the duality of living in the 3D world. Okay, where is that understanding? Oh, here it is. Okay, I'm holding it up. Thank you for your patience in listening to me. I know that, well, I know you get it. The bird pictured on this card is looking out from what seems to be a cage. There is no door, and actually, the bars are disappearing. The bars were an illusion. And this small bird is being summoned by the grace and freedom and encouragement of the others. It is spreading its wings, ready to take flight for the very first time. The dawn of a new understanding that the cage has always been open and the sky has always been there for us to explore can make us feel a little shaky at first. It's fine and natural to be shaky. But don't let it overshadow the opportunity to experience the lightheartedness and adventure on offer, right there alongside the shakiness. Move with the sweetness and gentleness of this time. Feel the fluttering within. Spread your wings and be free. You are out of jail, out of the cage. You can open your wings and the whole sky is yours. All the stars and the moon and the sun belong to you. You can disappear into the blueness of the beyond. Just drop clinging to this cage. Move out of the cage and the whole sky is yours. Open your wings and fly across the sun like an eagle. In the inner sky, in the inner world, freedom is the highest value. Everything else is secondary, even blissfulness, ecstasy. There are thousands of flowers, unaccountable, but they all become possible in the climate of freedom. And the climate of freedom is giving yourself permission to be, you know, without the fear of rejection, abandonment, judgment, ridicule, shame, you know, guilt. It's like, again, when we are in love, when we are in the energy of love, if somebody has wronged us and then they take ownership of it and they come to us and then we still push them away, then we're an asshole and we haven't done the work on ourselves, right? But if that situation arises, and it's funny because that's something that I've questioned a lot in my life, because that's happened a lot to me, where it's like, yeah, I've had a lot of fallings out in my life because I've also had very radical, violent changes in my life as I've evolved, you know. I mean, you don't get to this place in my life of understanding without doing that. I know that sounds very arrogant, but it's the truth, you know. I mean, I get to take ownership of that because, trust me, there's a lot of other things that like I haven't accomplished in my life. So I forgot what I was saying. It doesn't really matter, does it? And this will be the enlightenment on all of this reading. So I have no idea what it's going to tell us, but I know it's going to be good. I don't even know what the creator is in this deck. I can't remember. It's a fire card. It is the King of Wands. Interesting. Leonine energy. And, you know, so this would make sense because where we're headed, you know, once we move into that third decan of Cancer, you know, a lot of planets will already have moved into Leo. Mars is in Leo. You've probably been feeling that if you've been very frustrated or trigger happy with your anger or frustration. You know, Mars in Leo will do that. It emboldens us and it makes us, and if we're not able to express our frustration, it can really feel antagonizing. But a lot of planets will have shifted, will be shifting into Leo. Venus very soon. And wait. I don't remember anyway. I don't know where the planets are at in that way right now, to be perfectly honest with you. I just had a total brain fart. But regardless, you know, that final decan of Cancer is the melding of that inner shell, going inwards and fixing those things, like analyzing those things, seeing where the karma is ending, and where we can let go of it. Then the second, moving that out into the world and experiencing that. And then the third is really the fusion of that energy, which is what thrusts us into Leo energy, right? Does that make sense? Because that's really how each shift from one zodiac season to another, you know, sign season to another. It's like there's always that, you know, the inner discovery, the outer discovery, and then the melding of the two, which then, as a result, turns into the energy of the next sign. Well, that's how I see it anyway, so maybe I'm completely out of my mind, but it always seems to work that way. Okay, here we go. The Creator. This is our epiphany. The Zen master in this card has harnessed the energy of fire and is able to use it for creation rather than destruction. He invites us to recognize and participate with him in the understanding that belongs to those who have mastered the fires of passion without repressing them or allowing them to get destructive or out of balance. He is so integrated that there is no longer any difference between who he is inside and who he is in the world outside. See? I mean, I can't make this shit up. He offers this gift of understanding and integration to all those who come to him, the gift of creative light that comes from the center of his being. The King of Fire tells us that anything that we undertake now, with the understanding that comes from maturity, will bring enrichment to our own lives and to the lives of others. Using whatever skills you have, whatever you have learned from your own life experience, it is a time to express yourself. There are two types of creators in the world. One type of creator works with objects, a poet, a painter. They work with objects, they create things. The other type of creator, the mystic, creates himself. Something I didn't understand for a long time, because even though I am artistically creative, because of the materialistic way that the world is in the 3D, I always felt like a failure because I didn't commoditize my talent. But coming into mysticism and the healing arts, I understood the truth of creativity. He doesn't work with objects, he works with the subject. He works on himself, his own being. And he is the real creator, the real poet, because he makes himself into a masterpiece. You are carrying a masterpiece hidden within you, but you are standing in the way. Just move aside, then the masterpiece will be revealed. Everyone is a masterpiece because God never gives birth to anything less than that. Everyone carries the masterpiece hidden for many lives, not knowing who they are and just trying on the surface to become someone. Drop the idea of becoming someone because you already are a masterpiece. You cannot be improved. You have only to come to it, to know it, to realize it. God has himself created you. You cannot be improved. I love it. It's probably one of the most cohesive, empowering readings that I've ever done. And I might not have presented it with a lot of pizzazz or flair, but I hope you receive it the way that it's intended, and I hope that there's as much substance to it as I intuited. I love you very much. I have infinite love, or I at least work hard to have infinite love for everyone, but boy, it's been challenging sometimes, right? But in any case, I love you. I really appreciate the time that you give to me, and I'm really proud of us, because if you're understanding what I'm saying, then that means that you've probably been through a lot of variations on the same theme that I have, and there's every reason to be proud of ourselves and each other. Okay, so if you're having a hard time, hang in there, but listen to, figure out the practical way to put all of this into place, because you hold the key. It's so frustrating sometimes when somebody comes at you with such simplistic, direct advice, but it's the truth. You hold that key. Switch it. Change your perspective if it's holding you back. There you go. See you in a week. Namaste.